This is Join Us in France, episode 450, 450. Bonjour, I'm Annie Sargent, and Join Us in France is the podcast where we talk about France. Everyday life in France, great places to visit in France, French culture, history, gastronomy, and the news related to travel to France. Today, I bring you a trip report with Bernadette and Steven Fernandes about a trip that started in Bordeaux and ended up in Marseille. Bernadette and Steven have great tips about how to organize a trip along the Pyrenees. Should you move to a different hotel every night? Or should you stay put for several day trips? That changes a lot of things, as you'll see. For the magazine part of the podcast, I'll talk about tipping and how it's changing rapidly in France. I posted something about this on the Facebook group and got lots of reactions. Some I want to agree with, others I want to disagree with. This podcast is supported by donors and listeners who buy my tours and services, including my itinerary consult service and my GPS self-guided tours of Paris on the Voice Map app. And you can browse all of that at my boutique, joinusinfrance.com/boutique. And after the interview, I'll tell you about how I've been trying to work out a way to offer faster turnaround service for itinerary reviews. The full itinerary service I've been offering is really popular and is booked up several weeks in advance, which means that I constantly get emails from people who say, could you possibly fit me in faster? And the reality is, it's hard to do because the full service takes so much of my time. But I think I came up with a good solution that will make it work better for everyone. Bonjour, Bernadette and Steven, and welcome to Join Us in France.
Bonjour, Annie.
Bonjour, Annie.
Lovely to talk to you. Today, we want to talk about your trip. You had a fantastic trip. You landed in Bordeaux and you made your way all the way across the southwest to Marseille. So I want to hear all about it. What were the stages of this trip, Steven?
We flew from Montreal to Bordeaux. Well, we spent the first part of it in Bordeaux, Saint-Emilion specifically. We had 2 nights there. And then we made our way to the Atlantic Ocean. And we stayed a night in Bayonne and then continued towards the Pyrenees. And then we went east from there.
So across the Pyrenees, you can't actually drive across the Pyrenees. You had to go through like Bayonne and then Pau and then Lourdes and then back up.
Lourdes.
Then back up towards Toulouse, right?
Well, we spent 2 nights in the Pyrenees at 2 different towns. We were in New Saint-Sever one night, and then the following night we were in one of the thermal towns.
Aix-les-Bains, yeah.
So that's kind of what I meant about kind of going through the Pyrenees. Then we went to Narbonne for 4 nights.
Okay.
And we did a day trip through the Narbonne area.
Fantastic. Okay. What was it like picking up every night and going to a different place? Was that something, did that work out? How old are you? You're in your early 60s, right?
Yes.
So how was that like, just picking up and moving the next day?
Well, we do that a lot. And actually staying in one place for a couple of nights is something new, but that we've become more accustomed to. So I think 2 nights is the minimum that we'd like to do, and that worked the best. I think by moving around in the Pyrenees, the 2 nights, that was a little too much.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know that would be that again. I would have picked one town in the Pyrenees and stayed there for 2 nights.
Yeah.
What do you think, Bernadette?
Oh, I agree with you. It seemed like we were getting to our accommodations in the late afternoon and then not really having a chance to explore the city and then getting up early the next morning to head out for the next day.
Yeah, I think that's a problem, and it can be easily avoided by not being so ambitious as far as how much ground you're going to cover. Instead of going all the way through the Pyrenees, just do from, I don't know, Bordeaux to Pau or something, or Aix-les-Thermes or something. Because if you try to go like you did all the way to Marseille, then you're going to pick up and leave the next day quite a few times, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So if we wanted to do again, I would have probably split the trip into 3 parts and just have 3 different accommodations. That might have worked better.
I see. And you would have picked which towns for that?
Yeah, well, starting with Saint-Emilion, we both really enjoyed the town, probably more so than the wine. I really wanted to like it, but it wasn't exceptional for me. And what I did learn is that the Saint-Emilion wines typically are more Merlot based or have more Merlot in them than the Cabernet. And maybe that's what the deal is. I don't know. I wasn't blown away by the wines there.
Yeah. What did you think, Bernadette?
Oh, well, I agree with Steve on that, but I enjoyed the wines in the Pyrenees in the different towns that we stayed at, Bayonne and Saint-Sever, and you just ordered a glass of wine and it was lovely.
Huh.
And I don't know what the wine region is down there, but I really enjoyed the wine there.
Yeah, so it depends, but they have, I can't remember the name of that. It might come back to me. But there's a sweet white and another one that's not so sweet around Po area that are popular. It's not coming back. Anyway, do you normally drink red or white?
I drink red, and Bernadette typically drinks white.
Yeah.
€4 a glass, it was crazy.
How much did you pay at home?
Oh, $12.
It's expensive, yeah.
Yeah.
For a glass?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, not French prices. Between 5 and 6 is normal for a glass.
That's reasonable. But the good thing about Saint-Emilion, the history in the town, it was just a great experience. The monolithic church tour. I'm not a big tour guy, but I thought the tour was exceptional. Being down in the inside of that church was just amazing.
Right. And you need to take a tour to go inside of the church. Otherwise, you don't get in.
Correct.
How did you book that tour?
We booked it through the tourist center at the top of the hill. Further, do you want to just give a comment on your experience with the tourist center?
It was very strange because on our previous trips, the tourist centers were always so excited to see you. And I walked in a tourist center and I said, bonjour. And the 3 people behind the desk just looked at me. Nobody even said bonjour back. Oh. I was really surprised.
Wow.
I know. Maybe it had been a long week because it was school vacation week.
Oh, perhaps. But, maybe a long week. Maybe they were just in a bad mood. Maybe they had just gotten bad news. Who knows?
I don't know. But one other thing that we found out from a guest at the place that we stayed at was that you can ask for the key to go up to the bell tower at the tourist office. And I would definitely do that. It's a really tiny, narrow staircase, and it takes you all the way up to the top of the bell tower, which had beautiful views.
Nice. Oh, yeah, I didn't realize that. But you do have to go ask for the key.
Correct.
And it's like €1 or $2, right?
I can't remember. It was well worth whatever we paid.
Oh, very good.
But both of those tours were booked through the tourist center.
Hang on, I only remember one. You did the underground church, and what was the other tour?
To get up to the top of the bell tower.
Oh, I see. Okay, so
both of that had to be coordinated through the tourist.
I see.
center.
I see. Okay, so you could either do it through a tour or go ask for the key and do it yourself. Is that what you mean?
That's right.
Okay. All right. So Saint-Emilion. Saint-Emilion is an interesting little town. It's beautiful, but it's quite small. And I think people who go... Did you ride any bikes by any chance?
We did not. Not on that. Nope.
Okay.
We did a lot of walking through the city. I thought it was a good size for me because you can get from one end to the other and really see it. We had a picnic at the Cordelier, I think it's put out at the top of the hill. There's a courtyard, and there was a place you could get, a baguette, and there was a snack bar there and picnic tables. It was really nice. That was a surprise. We didn't really know it existed. We stumbled across that.
Oh, I forgot to ask you, what time of year was this trip?
This was in November, the first week of November.
So did you have good weather?
Yeah, the weather was nice. The strange thing is it was so dark early in the morning. When we arrived to pick up the car in Bordeaux, it was 8:30 in the morning, and it was still dark out. That was really late for the sun to rise.
Yeah, it gets dark in a big hurry in southern France, But then the days get very long in the summer season as well. So we get both extremes. We get very short days in the winter and very long days in the summer.
Yeah, we just weren't expecting that. Didn't really even think about it, but that was something that was it made the day much shorter. When we were there in May, it was, you had more time to be outside and do things.
So why don't we talk about some of your favorite things that happened on this trip? Because you listed them for me. And so in this part of the conversation, we're going to be all over the place, right? We're not trying to do this chronologically, just your most interesting stuff. Why don't we start with you, Bernadette?
We have to mention the dinner that we had in Saint-Emilion. I know that's all we've been talking about, but our host at our chateau had made reservations for us at Chez Pascal. And we walk in and it was this tiny, like 10 tables. Everybody showed up at the same time. And she was competently taking care of all the tables. She put us, I'm like, oh no, it's really hot in here. But she put us right near the window. And I was like, oh, this is so awesome. I had a nice breeze. And she just made us feel very welcome. She allowed us to try our French, even though she was so busy. And she made a big thing of, we ordered a bottle of wine that wasn't from Saint-Emilion. And she goes, you know, that's not from Saint-Emilion. And we said, oh yeah, we know. It's from Côte d'Aron. And then she proceeded to turn the label towards the wall, put a pot of flowers in front of the bottle. Oh, it was just hysterical.
She was very funny.
She was hurt that you didn't pick her down. That's fair enough.
And then moving on to the next part of our trip to Bayonne, that was a nice surprise. You had listened to one of the podcasts that you and Elise had done and thought that would be a good stopover on the way to the Pyrenees. And it was really nice. We sat by the river and had a glass of wine or two, and they were really, really good glasses of wine. And the scenery was just beautiful. And moving on the next day to Lourdes, that was another, we didn't have high expectations, but I thought it was just very well done as a shrine and just as a place you could walk in. Just think, it was really nice. Lourdes was something that we debated about going to, and really happy we did.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was on your way, so you might as well just stop there. I mean, you went, but not as pilgrims. You weren't looking for the religious experience. You just wanted to see it, right?
We went to, there was a mass going on, so we sat through the mass, and then we went through the grotto as well, you know, watching the pilgrims. It was a very, very nice experience.
What did you think, Bernadette?
Oh, I agree. I thought it would be like very touristy and not religious or special at all. It was just beautiful. It wasn't even a nice day, I don't believe. I think it was cloudy, but it was just a beautiful place to walk around, and the church was beautiful, and I'm glad we stopped.
Yeah. But then on your list, the number 2 was Andorra surprise. And now you're talking about Lourdes. So what is this Andorra surprise? I want to know.
Well, Andorra is not very far from, is it Aix-les-Thermes?
Aix-les-Thermes, yeah.
After 10, it's like 45 minutes. And we're like, hey, we're never going to get a chance to go to Andorra. I mean, we're this close. It's a little tiny country. It's not even part of France or Spain. It's in the middle of the Pyrenees. And we said, oh, look at all the hairpin turns. But we took the drive up there. We had our passports ready because we knew it wasn't part of the EU. And we got there. We've been in these little tiny medieval towns, and we get there, and it was like all these huge hotels and ski areas. And it was not what we were expecting.
Andorra is interesting because it does have a tiny little medieval part to it, but it's very, very small. And it's been built up as this place where people can buy stuff tax-free. And so you have Spaniards and French people going there to buy stuff tax-free. And people go skiing as well. They are trying to develop more the ski activity than the commercial activity, but it's definitely very commercial.
And that's where the surprise is.
Okay. Yeah. You weren't expecting that. Yeah, I get it.
No.
Yeah, I've been going there my whole life, so it didn't occur to me, but you're right. It is surprising.
Yeah, I mean, you're in all these little towns through the Pyrenees, and you see nothing like, you know, the downtown area that you enter in Andorra. It was a little culture shock after being in these little towns.
So earlier you mentioned your picnic in Saint-Emilion at Les Cordeliers, and I hadn't read that carefully enough. But you say you discovered Rillettes. Okay, you got to tell us about this because people might not know what it is.
Well, we didn't know what to get for lunch, and we saw the baguettes there, so we picked up one of those, and they had all these little jars of Rillettes and these breads that you put on bread, and there was one with, you know, shrimp and I think chorizo, and we had one with scallop and all the different seafoods put together in a spreadable form. So we just picked one up and sat down, and it was delicious. We got the shrimp one, I believe.
You liked it, huh?
I loved it. And the bottle of wine that we got, too, was great. You want to
Oh, yeah. You forgot to talk about the bakery that we discovered. The little, is it cannelés?
Les cannelés.
Cannelés.
Yes.
Those were
we walked into a bakery, and someone in front of me was ordering a couple, and I'd never seen them before. So we had just gotten into town, and I asked her, if we could have a couple, and walked outside and gave one to Bernadette, and we looked at each other and like, wow, these are delicious.
They're really good. They're way better, in my opinion. They taste a lot better than macaron. But because they don't look as good as macaron, they don't sell as much. But they are so tasty.
Oh, yes.
I would have to agree with that.
Yeah. If I have a choice between cannelé and macaron, I will take the cannelé every day of the week. It's so much better. But that's a specialty of Bordeaux, the Bordeaux area.
Okay.
Yeah. And we tried to get them in Montreal, and it's just not the same.
Ah, sorry.
Yeah. No.
You're going to have to come back.
I got all excited. I said, Steve, we have it right here in Montreal. And like, oh, no, not the same. So we have to go back to Saint-Emilion or Bordeaux to just get another one.
I think Costco sells them. And if you buy them at Costco, it's going to come in a box of 16 or whatever crazy sizes Costco sells. But you can just keep them, covered. And then you just take one and you put it in a microwave for 10 or 15 seconds. And they come right back to life and they are delicious.
Oh, thanks for the tip.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, let's go down your list. Oh, number 5 was fresh eggs. What's so special about those fresh eggs? I want to know.
So in the middle of the week, in Narbonne, we ended up staying it was like a guest house that was part of an old wine chateau. And they converted part of it into probably 10 different apartments with a little courtyard. So we stayed there. And in the morning, we had stayed there before, and I had remembered that you could go get eggs from the reception area. They open from like 8 to 10, and they have milk and eggs and just some supplies. So I went in to get eggs because we had no time to shop the night before arrival. And the woman looked around and she said, oh, we have no eggs here. I said, look, come with me. So we took a walk, and we went across the street into the chicken coop. And I was like, well, I hope she's not going to make me go in there with her. But there was, and she opened the lock, walked in there, and you got half dozen of fresh eggs.
There you go. Straight from the chicken coop.
The look on Steve's face when he came back was priceless. He goes, look they still have stuff all over them. We had the washer, or I guess you don't have. I don't know. It was pretty funny.
Yeah. That's very funny. Yeah, I mean, well, if they ran out, they went and got them at the source. That's what you do. Yeah, that's the way to go. That's great. So, see, that's the joy. Yes, that's the joy of traveling through the little towns of France. And I get the feeling that you guys are not like super scheduled. So you'll just take a side trip into the chicken coop if you need. Like, it's fine.
I think it's the way you discover a lot of things doing it that way. So, I mean, you can strike out too, but most of the time we find some really fun things by just kind of stumbling onto something.
That's great. Then you went to Mirepoix.
Yes, based on the podcast that you and Elise did, it just enchanted us. And so we actually listened to the podcast while we were driving to Mirepoix. We listened to it, and we just loved that town. It's a cute little Bastide town. And Elise had mentioned a 300-year-old tree, and we wanted to find it. But the tourist office was closed, so we didn't know.
Aww.
We looked for tall trees, but we couldn't find it. But it was just a beautiful little town.
Yeah, if you had stopped somebody in the street and said, where's the old tree? They might have looked at you like, what? It's a very small little town. It's very adorable. It's one of the really cutest little towns in the Southwest. But there's not much there, right? I mean, I like to go and just stay for lunch or something and then move on to something else.
That's exactly what we did. We stopped there right around lunchtime, and we sat down at one of the restaurants in the square. And we had a nice conversation with a local family. It was a mother, father, and their daughter, and their Bernese Mountain Dog. And we used to have a Bernese Mountain Dog. We engaged in a little bit of conversation. It was fun. They were very nice.
And you speak French, right, Steven?
Well, I can get by. I
Okay.
could start a conversation. Yeah, so that would made it nice. So I could actually start a conversation in French. And then
That's great.
we figured it out from there.
Yeah. And then you went all the way to the coast, to Saint-Pierre-la-Mer. So that's like on the marsh between the land and the Mediterranean. Tell us about that.
Oh, it's a lovely spot right on the beach. And we always this is our second time to this town. And we just love it. It's a cute farmer's market every day. And so we bought some supplies for our apartment. And then we had a nice lunch, and it was so windy. Oh, my goodness. The tables and everything was blowing around. But it's a beautiful little town on the beach in nice cafes. Even in November, we sat outside at a cafe.
Yeah. So Saint-Pierre-la-Mer, you can go between Saint-Pierre-la-Mer and another town just a little further north called Bages. And you're on this tiny little road where two cars can pass by each other, but they have to squeeze to the side, they have to cooperate, as is often the case on old French roads like that. But it's beautiful because you're right on the coast. It's also a beautiful bike ride. And this is not far at all from l'Abbaye de Fontfroide. Did you make it there or no?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Yes, because it's like a few kilometers away.
Abbaye de Fontfroide, that was a great spot. You can walk the grounds, which I thought was awesome. There was a trail that went to like up a hill and then around the property, which gave you a really good view of the abbey.
Yeah.
And just the whole walking through the tour, that's something we missed the first time we were there, and we made sure we took advantage of it this trip.
Yeah, and now I see it was number 19 on your list, sorry. But there's also a really nice wine shop at the entrance of the Abbaye de Fontfroide. And they sell a dry Muscat wine that I love. For some reason, I love these dry Muscat type grapes. It's a beautiful white wine.
Oh, we'll have to try it because we didn't.
Yeah, they sell a bottle for about 10 euros. It's their mid-range. And they have a red that's called the Deo Gracias. It's very cute. And I think the white is also called Deo Gracias. Anyway, the red is more expensive. It's more like 20, and it's okay. It's a bit overpriced for the quality of the wine. But the Muscat is, it's hard to find. I had some in Alsace, but I didn't know. It just so happens that because the Abbey has a big wine operation, they make their own wine. That's one of the ones that they make. Yeah, anyway, that's a lovely area. So Saint-Pierre-la-Mer, Bages, and Abbaye de Fontfroide. An excellent recommendation. I second that heartily.
I can't wait to go back.
The apartment that we stayed in was pretty central to all of these places, Saint-Pierre-la-Mer, and to the Abbey, and to Narbonne. So that was another day trip that we took into Narbonne. And I think Narbonne's a great city to just walk around, explore the cathedral. For a couple of days we were there, we were able to hit the market that was right by the canal, which is a great market. And there's the halls of Narbonne as well, where I believe those are open every day, where you can get fresh food, bakery item, everything.
So it's interesting because, you went all the way to Marseille, but so far you've mostly talked about the southwest part of your trip. Was there nothing in the Marseille area that you liked?
Well, we took a train the last day from Narbonne to Marseille. So we had like a day and a half in Marseille. Why don't you talk a little bit about Marseille, Bernadette?
Well, it's funny. We're like, we don't want to go to Marseille, but we have to fly back from Marseille because they don't fly back from Bordeaux. And then we listened to your podcast about how beautiful the port was. Because I was like, let's just stay at the airport. We'll just stay at an airport hotel.
Oh,
like,
no,
okay.
No, don't do that.
So I was like, okay, the whole port sounds really nice. So I'm going to find a hotel with a port view and treat ourselves on the last night of our trip. And it was beautiful. We had a beautiful view of the old port. I'm like, I wish we had more time here. It was well done. The tourist areas, the history in Marseille, it didn't feel like France to me because it was so eclectic, so many different cultures all mixed into to one place.
Yeah.
It was very exciting to explore.
Yeah. So Marseille gets a bad rap, in part because of the TV show, but also because of French people, because it's so multicultural that any French person who's not so happy with multicultural will give it, which, human nature, that's how people are. And so they will say, it's crap, don't go, whatever. Honestly, it is not my favorite city in France, obviously, but it is a fine place to go. There are some nice places in Marseille. They have a marvelous museum. The museum is really good. Now they have the replica of the Cosquer underground painted caves.
Oh.
So this opened recently, like last year or something. So it's just like Lascaux, in the Dordogne. But this is a cave that's underneath. Today, the cave is underwater. So you get the guy who discovered it, his name is Cosquer, and he went in through the water. But long ago, obviously, the entrance was from the land. And that entrance is, they know where it is now, but it was covered for the longest time. Anyway, it's a beautiful painted cave, and it's really interesting. And the replica is in Marseille. So that's another thing. And of course, if you like literature, Comte de Monte Cristo Chateau d'If is right there. You can take a boat tour on the Calanque, along the Calanque. Anyway, Marseille is a great place for, a couple, perhaps 2-3 days, perhaps. I'm not sure I would spend more time, but...
We didn't have enough time there, but I'm glad we went because we would like to go back. We talked about that.
And you're hardly the only ones who think, Marseille I have to avoid, Cannot go to Marseille. I'm going to somehow get killed.
Or it's like not a nice city. It was very clean. It was well taken care of. Yeah, and we met some nice people, and it was...
Yeah, that part of the city is very nice. If you want to see the nasty part of Paris, I know where to send you as well. It's not hard. The reason why nobody talks about Paris that way is because tourists don't go there. Well, you don't have to go there in Marseille either, do you?
No.
The walk from the train station down to the old fort I thought that was terrific. You walk down and you've got to just get through the narrow streets, and then there'd be like a market there, and just, all kinds of different foods that I've never even heard of before. So that was just really enlightening, and it was nice. And then you get to the old fort, and it's just a beautiful sight.
Yeah.
You can walk all around well.
Yeah. So I got to ask you, there's something on your list that's very strange. You've mentioned food shopping at Intermarché. All right, Bernadette, what's up with that? What is up with that?
I don't know. There's just so many different foods, and it was so exciting. One day we actually went to the market twice because it was like so much fun to see all the different types of food. And then we started noticing different brands of coquilles Saint-Jacques, and we're like, oh, we love this. Let's try this brand. Let's try this brand. And then I'm like, Wackadoo, I'm like, oh, I need a sundress. They have a sundress right over there. I've got a sundress because it's a little warmer than I thought it was, and I need a sundress. And it was just like, it was so much fun. We just loved going to the supermarket.
But you like Intermarché in particular. That one hit the spot.
Yes, because we went there so often, we were familiar where everything was, so it was easy to shop.
Yeah. So it's funny because people get their favorites. The people who go to Paris all the time, they talk about Monoprix. They really like Monoprix in Paris, which is a very nice store. And same, it has some clothes and some shoes and food and a little bit of everything. It's a grocery store. It's like the super Targets, I guess, right? Is that how you would compare it for American stores?
Yeah, similar, yeah.
Yeah.
But we could spend a good half hour to an hour in there. And getting an apartment that has a kitchen and having an outdoor barbecue, we would, go there to get our dinner supplies. And yeah, they had everything you need.
Yeah.
Except the egg. It took me a long time to find the eggs because they weren't in the dairy case.
No, they're not. You went looking for a chicken coop? That's where they start,
Oh, what we need to mention too is the speeding tickets.
Oh, dear.
2 of them.
2 of them. Do tell.
Okay, we're going from Saint-Emilion down to Bayonne. And look at Roquefort is halfway there. we can stop and get some blue cheese. So we're in these back towns and stuff. And then when we got to Roquefort, we realized this was not the right Roquefort. No, there's no blue cheese anywhere.
No.
So we got so confused. I think the tickets were near that rotary. And we're like,
They were.
okay. And we got 2 tickets at the same spot within 5 minutes of each other for 4 kilometers. 4 kilometers over the speed limit. And I kept on saying, Steve, Annie says they give out a lot of speeding tickets in France, but I don't know where that spot was, but they got us.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, they will get you. If you go any over the speed limits, they'll get you. And you have to be careful with the Roquefort as well, because there's a lot of towns called Roquefort in France. There's probably a dozen in all over France. So because Roquefort means the strong rock, right? Roquefort. The strong rock, right?
Okay.
So, yeah, there's more than one strong rock. So the one that you want it's much further east. It's by Millau.
It was not. We weren't even near there. So we're like, okay, what are we going to do now? Okay, let's just stop at this rest area and have our picnic lunch, because we like to carry a cooler with us and have a picnic lunch. And we're sitting there at this picnic table, and this guy pulls up. And next thing you know, he's taking a horse out of a trailer to take him for a little walk. Like you would take a dog out for a walk in a rest area. He had a huge horse, and he hung a bale of hay from a tree, and the horse was, I'm like, I've never seen anything like this before. It was really pretty funny.
Well, it was probably the horse's lunch break.
Yeah, he needed to stretch his legs. It was been in that trailer for who knows how long, but it was such a wonderful, little part of our day.
See the joys of countryside France. You see all sorts of things.
And there's always plenty of places to pull off on the side of the road to have a picnic. Picnic tables and some green space, which I found great. I really appreciated that.
Yes. So sometimes I wish these picnic tables were more, like they were better indicated, like you would find them easier on a map. But really, if you just open your eyes, as soon as there's a little side road, a pullover kind of type road off to the side of a minor national or départemental, so these would be the minor roads in France, there usually is a picnic table somewhere.
And that particular day, we were taking the back road from Bayonne to, through Roquefort.
Not where there's cheese.
no highways that day. So I actually saw quite a few rest areas that were had picnic table.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them. And so, yeah, it's a lovely thing to do is to buy a lunch. And of course, in this sort of areas, sometimes it's hard to find a restaurant that's open when you're hungry. Whereas, you can always have, if you have a picnic lunch, you can eat your own thing when you're hungry. You don't have to wait for French food time.
We didn't want to have like a structure, like, we have to go to this restaurant at this time. We just wanted to let the day happen, and having a picnic lunch always allows us to let life happen while we're driving around.
So one last thing I want to ask you about, you mentioned the little towns along the Canal du Midi. This is something that we've talked about on and off, but not that much. Tell us a little more about that.
Well, actually, we haven't spoken about Carcassonne because it wasn't on our list of favorite things to do. So we weren't as enamored with Carcassonne as we were with Lourdes. It must have been because school vacation week. And we were just like, let's get out of Carcassonne. So we were driving back to Narbonne along the Canal du Midi, and we just kept on popping into all these little towns and checking out the canal. And it was really beautiful. We want to try to bike the Canal du Midi, but some spots are not as well taken care of.
Yeah.
But the beautiful little towns in the canal is quite fascinating.
Yeah. Another very nice thing to do in Narbonne, since you stayed in Narbonne and I know you're going back, Narbonne has these little electric boat rentals. And they're very small little boats, they're not massive things, but it's fun. You can get your little electric boat on the canal for an hour one way, another hour back, and it's very pleasant. Now, I know people want to, some people want to do a whole cruise and spend a week and whatever, but that's a different thing altogether. Just enjoy it for a couple of hours, and then you take the boat back and let them take care of it. That's my idea of a fun boat ride, is when I don't have to take care of the boat.
I agree with.
Yeah, boats are a lot of work. You got to know what you're doing. So, yeah.
But the history of the Canal du Midi is fascinating. And it's just amazing that it's still in use today.
Okay, last thing is you have flown Level Airline and Air Transat. So I'd like to hear your feedback about those airlines. What are they like and are you happy with them?
So Air Transat flies from Montreal. On a previous trip, we flew from Montreal to Bordeaux and then back from Marseille. But Level flies from Boston directly to Barcelona. And they have our number because they email us all the time. Hey, we got a really good deal. That's why we keep on going back to France. Because like, how can we not go back to France? This is so inexpensive to fly from Boston to Barcelona. And then it's easy to get on the train and just go up. You know, that's a major line that goes right up from Barcelona up to Narbonne. We've gone to Nîmes. It stops all the way along the Mediterranean up there. So it's quite easy.
Yeah. So you don't end up going to Paris very much, do you? You come to France, but not Paris.
Right. We're not big city people. It's kind of crazy.
No, but it's great.
We did go to Paris like 15 years ago, I think, when our daughter was in high school. And she went on a trip to Paris with her high school class. And we're like, hey, wait a minute, you can't do that. We have to do it too. So we went later on that same year to go back to Paris. But it was beautiful. But we like the little towns.
Yeah.
And Narbonne is like that medium-sized city. That's perfect for us, where it's easy enough to get around without getting intimidated. Mm-hmm. But Level actually had more comfortable seats than Air Transat. So that was a big thing when you're trying to sleep on the plane.
And they're both kind of budget airlines, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think the experience was good with both airlines. Having a direct flight, I think, is great. I thought landing in Bordeaux, like leaving from Montreal and doing a direct to Bordeaux, was a little more convenient than going to Barcelona. But if you could take advantage of a night or two in Barcelona on your trip, Level is definitely the way to go.
Yeah.
So that's what you want.
Yeah. And you found driving and renting a car in France fairly easy, right?
Yeah, it was very easy. We found a place in Enterprise right in Narbonne, which is very convenient for dropping the car off and then just walking over to the train station for, the next stage of our trip. When I returned the car, the gentleman kept referring to me as partner. Hey, partner. I'm like, where are you from? I'm from Florida. I'm just leaving our boat right now. And I guess his father was French. And nobody calls you partner in France.
No. Yeah. That was a strange Frenchman. Partner. No, I'm not a partner. I mean,
we meet the nicest people. If you've tried to speak French, they just really appreciate it. It's just say bonjour. It's like all the tips that you give us. It's the people we meet are just fantastic. They really are.
That's great.
That's why we back. Yep.
That's great. Well, Steven and Bernadette, you have been a delight to talk to. I'm not surprised that you find friendly people in France because you are friendly yourselves. And so that's how it works. If you're friendly and smiley and giggly, they will giggle right with you because why wouldn't they? So anyway, thank you so very much for coming on the podcast. I hope this will inspire more people to leave Paris behind for a bit and go see the rest of the country. We have nice things.
It's beautiful.
We have very nice things. All right. Yeah. Merci beaucoup.
Au revoir.
Au revoir. Again, I want to thank my patrons for supporting the show and giving back. Patrons get several exclusive rewards for doing that, and you can see them at patreon.com/join us. Thank you all for supporting the show. Some of you have been doing it for so long. You are amazing. And a shout out this week to new patrons, Megan Honert and Charles Mayer. Thank you so much for becoming patrons and making this podcast possible. And again, patrons, I would like to encourage you to install the Patreon app on your phone. It's a wonderful way to enjoy your rewards, and there are many more of those coming along very soon. Okay, let's talk about the itinerary service for a minute. The way it's worked out so far was that customers picked how many days they wanted me to help them plan. They filled up a form and we talked about it on the phone for about an hour. And then I produced a custom document for each one of these customers. And that's what takes a long time. For the longer itineraries, sometimes I spend 20 hours of solid work. It's really hard to sustain that level of customization. So while I will continue to offer the full service itineraries, which I'm now renaming VIP service, to the people who want that, I will now add another option that I call the Bonjour service. For this level of service, we talk for an hour and I answer all of your questions, and I'm pretty sure you'll be able to find a slot fairly quickly for that. The thing is, I answer all your questions, we talk for an hour, but then I don't send you a document. Now, I will send you some links, or perhaps a document I've already written while we talk. Perhaps you'll want some hotel and restaurant recommendations, and I can send those via email. But I won't produce a custom document for your trip. I'm testing this right now. More on how things are going to progress in future episodes, but you'll see all of that at the boutique. So joinusinfrance.com/boutique, and you'll be able to see up-to-date information. And of course, you can still take me along on your Parisian adventure with my GPS self-guided tours available on the VoiceMap app. And you know what? If that's all you need, then get that. You'll have a grand time. All right, let's talk about how tipping in France and how it is changing. Here's what I wrote on Facebook. In L'Île-sur-la-Sorgue this week, I paid by credit card, and the machine asked me if I wanted to leave a tip. And I did, because I was very happy with the service. I gave €5 for a €90 tab. The owner said it would go to the waitress and she wouldn't have to pay tax on it, and that it was just like leaving coins on the table. But since most people don't have coins anymore, it's best to add the option on the card. Now, this is not everywhere yet, but I think it'll spread fast because restaurants have a hard time recruiting enough staff, especially in touristy places where rents are so high for seasonal workers. You don't have to leave 20%. It's just an extra thank you for a job well done. The staff still gets their normal living wage salary. And I approve of this development. And then I shared a few photos to catch your attention. Now, here's what different people said about this. Michelle says, I've been traveling to the south for the past 3 weeks and leaving 10%-ish. Mostly because I don't speak French and everyone is so kind and patient. I feel like if you're American, they know you're going to be tipping too. And yes, that's true. And I really appreciate people who realize that if you don't speak perfect French, then obviously you're going to slow down the waiters. It's just how it is. And so if you appreciate their patience, yes, a tip is very, very much appreciated. Then Elise says she approves wholeheartedly. The idea of giving a correct wage doesn't mean a tip is welcome. And it's really outdated. I mean, some people think that leaving a tip equals being offensive. And that is never true. It has never been true in France. It might be true in some other countries, but not in France. And, if you got good service, give people a tip. And this is true especially of restaurants and tour guides. Yes, tour guides like tips as well. Timothy says, we were only briefly in Île-sur-la-Sorgue, looking forward to visit. The canals are so charming. Yes, L'Île-sur-la-Sorgue is wonderful. Now, Jenny, who's one of the moderators, says, coming from a country where tipping is definitely not the norm, she's Australian, I'm a little sad about this. Not that I necessarily mind giving a little extra when service is exceptional, but it seems to be becoming an expectation, which makes me feel uncomfortable. Okay, so it's not an expectation. It is something that people want to do. Some people want to do, and they just want to make it possible, because I cannot tell you how many times I meant to leave a tip, but I don't have any cash. Or I only have a big bill or something. I'm not giving €50, okay? I just want to give 5 perhaps. So it is not an expectation. It is something that is appreciated, but not expected. Tommy says, in general, we don't tip in Finland. In France, they haven't done that for years, maybe decades. No, that's not true. I mean, we always had people who said absolutely no tip. But at the same time, you had people who always left a tip. So it just depends on who you talk to. And this person told me thinks it's a step back. Yeah, no, it's not a step back. It's a reality of life. It's expensive to live in Paris. It's impossible to live in Biarritz or Provence for a cheap wage. And if they cannot recruit enough workers locally, they have to bring people in. Where are they going to live? Like, they need to have a decent wage so they can stay in those areas. Gregorio, who's also a moderator, says, I have spoken at length with more than one restaurant owner in France, and the taxes and labor code obligations put on them are truly overwhelming. Yeah, but that's France anyway. I am amazed that they are able to keep anybody working for them. It's not the pay the servers, which is an issue. It's the burdens of the owners. Okay, he's a, like no government type of person. Okay, whatever. That is never going to happen in France, Gregorio, I'm sorry to say. We have plenty of government in France, and we actually like our government for the most part. So, yeah. But he does support tipping, which is great. But he says, don't forget the owners. Well, yeah, I'm not so worried about the owners. A few people say thank you for this info. Tipping has been a big discussion in travel groups, and it's very true. Bev, also a moderator, says she's happy to hear this. I always felt it was important to thank the servers who work so hard. And she says, our local favorites are struggling every day with staffing and costs. And she knows it's the same in France. Yes, it is. And somebody says, do they really not have to pay taxes on those tips? Jennifer asks this. And yes, I believe that's correct. They don't have to pay taxes on those tips. David says, I hope American-style tipping culture does not start to spread. I love that other countries do things differently. It's so much more fair for everyone when employees are just paid a decent hourly rate by their employer for their time. Yes, absolutely, David. I don't think there's any way French employers are going to get away with the awful things that American employers have been able to do to wait staff, which is hardly pay them at all. That's not happening, okay? Just because they get a tip doesn't mean that they will have less salary. We have big government in France. It protects people, and we like it that way. And then several people asked me about the food photos that I posted. Patty says, and this is why servers prefer cash tips instead of documented on credit cards. Yeah, perhaps. Yes, if you have cash, leave cash. But if you don't have cash, it's better to leave a tip on the credit card than leave no tip at all, which is what happened with a lot of people. Ryan says, no, don't let it happen. It's gotten so bad in the States. 20% is now the minimum, and you get asked for a tip everywhere now. Takeout, food, coffee, bakery, food trucks. It's out of control. Okay, that's not what we're talking about. Okay, we are not talking about America here. This is France. It's very different. It's not going to get to the point where people ask for tips everywhere. No. And even if they do, you can always say no. It's fine. You can say no. PJ says, I would not believe that a tip on a credit card would go to the server. Doesn't believe, doesn't trust. Well, perhaps there's a point here. And then Yuri says, the same practice has occurred in Australia too. The tip option is now on credit card where you can select a percentage or dollar value. Like it or not, cash is on the way out. It's just a matter of time. Perhaps that's what's happening. Cash is on the way out. At any rate, I just wanted you to know that in France these days, it is getting more and more common for restaurants to ask you, well, it's not even the restaurant. Some places, it's actually the servers saying this, would you like to leave a tip? That has not ever happened to me. What I'm talking about here is it's the machine, it's the credit card machine that asks me if I would like to add a tip. And I think that will happen more and more. Now, as for waiters asking directly for a tip, I would frown on that a little bit more because I think they would not do that to a table full of French people. They would know, they'd know it's not going to go anywhere. So in that instance where it's the waiter asking for a tip, I probably would resist that. But if it's on the credit card, if it's the credit card saying, do you want to add a tip? Yes, please, I would like to. It's actually a good thing, I think. All right. My thanks to podcast editors Anne and Christian Codovan. They do the transcripts. This is a great resource. Go to joinusinfrance.com, search through the transcripts. You will find unbelievable number of conversations. Next week on the podcast, an episode with Elise Riven about what is wonderful about life in France. And a pox on the naysayers. We love it here and we will tell you why. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you join me next time so we can look around France together. And next week, I'm back to my microphone. I do apologize for forgetting my microphone. Oh, jeez. Terrible person. Au revoir. The Join Us in France Travel Podcast is written, hosted, and produced by Annie Sargent and copyright 2023 by Addicted to France. It is released under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives license.